everyone, Krista Moser here. Today I get to show you my brand new pattern. This is Percy the Penguin. Isn't it cute? It's meant to be kind of a baby quilt or a wall hanging. It's actually made from really simple shapes, just diamonds and triangles mostly. So what I thought I would talk about is some color choices and then some of the specialty cuts that actually go into making like his face and his little wings and whatnot. You can probably already tell that the sky is an ombre fabric. So I went ahead and used this beautiful blue shade ombre, and what I did with it in order to do something like this, because I did want to cut my diamond pieces from it, so I cut whole strips parallel with the selvage. So then when I cut my diamond shapes, I was getting whole diamonds of each kind of shade and color. And so then when I went to do the layout, you know, it's the lightest shade here towards the mountains and it gets darker as it goes up, so giving that kind of sense of like sunset or more of an Arctic blue sky look. So that's using the ombre fabric, and what it results in is a pile of diamonds that are shaded in lights, mediums, and getting darker and darker as you cut your pieces all the way across the top. So very simple to do, but very effective. When you're just doing simple shapes, this is a good way to go because it really makes it dynamic. So let me show you some of the cuts. Like I said, mostly diamonds and triangles. And in this case, I used the mini ruler, the Creative Grid 60-degree diamond mini ruler. That's used for everything. Now, if you have the large ruler, you can use it. It will do all these same cuts. So what we've got here is part of his penguin body. So the white that goes down the center. And then what I did is moving out to the outside, I went with shades of gray, moving towards the outside. So there's 3 shades of gray and white up and down the middle. And then to do his wings, I used 2 shades of black. They're solid colors, so giving you 2 shades of black, I called it light black and dark black, kind of gives you a little dimension in there rather than just flat, flat, flat. So in this case, I've got the white, and if you're looking in your pattern here, all the cutting instructions for these shapes right here on the first set of pages. What we need, we just need 2 diamonds that are the whole size of the ruler. So this strip's 4.5 inches wide, so is the ruler. So I'm just laying it down. The fabric is layered up, two layers deep here. And I'm just going to cut 2 diamonds from edge to edge on the ruler. Make sure you nip these tips off because that saves so much headache later on. So we've got those. You end up with a couple of diamonds. Now I've already done the rest of his body here. So those are the shades of gray that I'm going to use on either side. You also need some triangle cuts. Those are also 4.5 inches in this case, so you're turning the ruler end to end. So here we were like this for the whole size of the ruler. Turn the ruler end to end, and now what we're going to do is the 4.5 inch line across the bottom. That's the dashed line through, just offset from the middle of the ruler. The large hanging hole of the ruler up here at the top, and then you're just cutting and you're trimming those little outside tips off as well. So that's the basics. You do most of the quilt with those 2 cuts there. So I'll set this aside. Now, for some of the fun cuts. Getting down here to his face and some of the details that go into that, especially like the eyeballs, I did a little strip set. So in this case, you've got 2 blacks and a white. So the white's up and down the middle. And then you're taking the ruler, you're lining it up on the 3.5 inch line. So this here you get 3.5 inch triangle line here, the large hanging hole of the ruler at the top, and cut. So you get a triangle, turn the ruler, and now the 3.5 inch line is across the other end, and the large hanging hole is pointed down towards me. It's a little extra there. Now, we have 2 identical triangles, just like this. I'm going to nip these outside tips off as well. Like I said, that's a step you don't want to skip. It's just makes everything foolproof. So what I've done is I've turned the flat tip towards me, and now I'm going to take the hanging hole of the ruler and point it up and away from me, and then I can just line up the 3.5 inch solid diamond lines, come down each side of this piece, exposing these little black tips. That works for all sizes. So if you're cutting triangles and you want to take both tips off at once, it works for 1.5 inch, 2.5 inch, all the sizes. Right now we're doing 3.5 inches. So the 3.5 inch triangle fills up the 3.5 inch diamond line, and it exposes those two outside tips. Just nip and nip. Okay, set those aside. Now, we've got these little strips here that fill out the rest of the face. So here's my 1.5 inch strip. I'm going to fold it in half. The reason we have to fold this one in half is because what I need from this are parallelograms. And you have to do mirror image because, you know, his eyes go, there's a right and a left. So we need a mirror image here. So what I've got is a strip folded in half. Now I have to remove the end. All I've got to do is get a 60-degree angle, cut off the end. So I'm just lining up the top edge on the ruler and the fabric here. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to line up the entire ruler out onto the fabric. This gives you no guesswork. I mean, it lines up the fabric with the ruler edge perfectly. And then you just cut backwards. That's a great way to go. And then I'm just going to scoot it back to the 2.5 inch diamond line. So the large hanging hole of the ruler is up here to the right. The 2.5 inch diamond line comes down the left side, and this is going to give me a 2.5 inch parallelogram. Just nipping these tips off. So we'll save that. And last but not least, we've got the little black strip. Now what we need from this one are trapezoids. And so in this case, I'm turning the ruler to the triangle line, so end to end, like this. 2.5 inch line across the bottom. Trim, trim. Turn the ruler. 2.5 inch line now goes across the top, and you get your second cut that way. We use these little pieces for something else in the pattern, so save those. Now, to trim these outside tips off, again, with that little trick that takes both off at the same time. If the pointed edges are pointed up and away from you, you can line up the cut edges here. In this case, it's a 2.5 inch trapezoid, so I can line it up on the 2.5 inch diamond lines. And then it just exposes those little tips, like that. All right, so here's how the eyes work. So you're just going to turn them facing each other like this. You take your mirror image, parallelograms, just like this, and your trapezoids, just like this. So the whole eye unit is these two get sewn together. This is why we remove those little flat tips, because now you have a 1/4 inch seam and it's a perfect matchup, you know, just where you're at. So you're going to sew that seam, press it open. Once it's sewn, then you have one whole piece that gets sewn onto this triangle unit here. So I've actually already done that step. Let me find those pieces, and you can see just how they come out once they're sewn. And here they are. There's his eyes, just like that. So much simpler than you think. Even though the pieces look a little bit small, really they come out to pretty good size. This is maybe the most tedious part of the whole quilt, I'd say. And it isn't all that bad. So we've got the eyeballs there. Now his feet. You can probably see his little orange feet. That cut happens a few times in the quilt. And in this case, it's a 2.5 inch strip. It's also used to create some of the tops of the mountains. So I'll just show you in the feet case how this works. So we've got a 2.5 inch strip. And in this case, you're doing a trapezoid. Your 4.5 inch line comes across the bottom here, and then there's a series of stars and a white dashed line across the top. So you're right between the 4.5 inch and what would be the 2 inch line. There's no number there, but that is what you're looking at. And then you're just going to cut the trapezoid here. Be sure to nip these little tips off. And then turn the ruler and get the next trapezoid. 2 of those is all you need. And here, his feet get paired with little gray triangles, also with their tips nipped off. So you have got your matchup point. When you lay the triangle down on here, you've got flat tip to flat tip, 1/4 inch seam will take care of all of that. And then that creates his whole little foot unit. So really straightforward. Okay, so once we've done that, the eyes, his beak, I'm not going to cut it, but you can kind of see how the unit works. It's a little orange diamond, 2 little white triangles, and then a white trapezoid. And then the side of his face, 2 more larger trapezoids and little black triangles. You already saw how the eyes worked. And then the center of his forehead. That's his face, all in all. So what I need to do is I need to sew this piece here, press that seam open, and then that unit will be ready to add to the next. So his face is basically a hexagon with 3 triangle units that create the whole face. That's not the way it's actually sewn together. This whole quilt is sewn together in diagonal rows. So I'm going to clear some space here and show you just how that part of the process works. Oh, one more thing, the side of his face. Let me just give you those pieces real quick before we clear off to do something else. This is kind of important. So in your pattern, there are a few places that you've got to pay attention. This is one of them. So in step 6, if you're looking, you've got this split triangle unit with the background sky. So this is the side of his head here. So the background sky has to meet the left side and the right side, meaning you need mirror image shapes. So this is what we're going to do. In this case, you start with your 4.5 inch line here across the bottom and the black center line of the ruler going right up that seam between these 2 rectangles. This is going to give you a triangle with a black on the right and a blue on the left. And we're starting from the bottom, right? So your 4.5 inch line is across the bottom. Trim, nip the tips, and nip the tips. And that goes to the side of his face here on the left. Now, with this oriented the same way, blue on the left and black on the right, you start at the top. So you turn the ruler, you're coming down from the top, and you've got your 4.5 inch line here right across the top, the black solid line of the ruler right up the middle, doing a split triangle, and this will be a mirror image of the one we just cut. Just like that. And there you go, all created to blend right into the sky. Okay, now I'm going to clear some space and show you how the rest of the body gets laid out. And we have wings to cut. False alarm again. One last piece. So, the wing pieces. These are also rectangle splits. This creates the wings here and the side of his body here. So what I've got is a blue combination with either gray or black because it goes right into his iceberg, which is the lightest shade of blue. And so I've got these 2 sewn together already. You're taking the whole size of the ruler. In this case, you've got the solid line right up the middle, and you're going to place that right up this seam. So it doesn't matter with blue or black on either side because you can swivel this piece around. So just lay it down. What you're concerned about is that that black line rides the seam all the way up. And we're just going to cut on all 4 sides. Just like this. Split triangle. So you do that for the black one. Now we've got one that's gray. There are 2 on each side. A black and a gray on each side of the penguin. There he is. I had already cut a couple of them previously, so now, boy, I think we're ready to lay it out. Just a minute. Okay, so here I'm going to take his whole head and I'm going to swivel it sideways so we have enough room to work. Hopefully. Now, first things first, if you can imagine him sideways here. First things first, we're going to put a triangle to meet the head, and then 2 diamonds going down the middle, another triangle to meet the bottom. And then working out right and left, he gets his tuxedo in shades of gray. That's our lightest gray. Then we're going to fill in here the next shade of gray. And finally, here, darkest gray. Last but not least, his little feet go right in here to finish out that piece. Like that. And then his wings. Starting here at the top, and we alternate those two shades of black, just like I was saying, to give it some kind of dimension. So here's a series of these triangles that come down the side. And like this. And first piece, that's the split triangles for his wings. They happen right, I gotta get one more of these guys and then I can do the split triangles. So these guys happen right here. Might be hard to see. Might be kind of falling off the table actually. That's where they come. So we've got triangle, 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 split diamond. And right under him is the split diamond in the gray and blue combo. So here's your basic penguin, and you can probably see, now when I go to sew this together, I'm going to do gentle diagonal rows, because basically everything we've done so far has led to triangle or diamond units, and they can all go together in these diagonal rows. Of course, I'm going to fill in with his iceberg, which is 3 shades of blue. We've got the lightest here moving out to a little bit light medium, and then the darker shade at the outside edge. The mountains are all diamonds and triangles the same way with their little snow-topped peaks. And then, of course, you saw the sky and how that works. So this is going to go together in diagonal rows this way, and we are just going to sew them piece to piece, you know, diamond to diamond. Now, when you sew these rows to each other, so this row is going to then get sewn to this row, we've got some matching up to do. So these intersections start to come together. That's what I call an X seam. So it's a technique. I've actually written a blog about that, so I will link that to that blog in the description box below this video, because that X seam is a little different than a typical seam. Typically, when you're matching up the edges of a row and you've got one row of blocks meeting another row of blocks, you would match up your seams at the outside edge. You'd pin them together. The problem with X seams is your seams actually need to match 1/4 inch from the edge. So, as the seams come together and this row lays on top of the next one, the seams pass each other. They make an X, 1/4 inch from the outside edge. That's where your seam line comes in. So if you're having trouble matching something like this, read that blog. Like I said, I'm going to link to it, because it's a very basic technique and it will change everything in the way that you go to piece these things together and get really accurate results. It's not hard to do. It's just something that you might not have known. This is the way we handle those. So, very straightforward, but this is really the long and the short of it. It's pretty basic. Big pieces. The fabric is what's fun about this, of course, and then some of the details going into the piecework. So, like I said, Percy the Penguin pattern comes at 42 by 48 inches, so a good size for a wall or a baby size, and then fully illustrated with colors and the layouts for all of the steps and more that I just showed you. This pattern is printed, so we've got printed versions. We also have a PDF version if you prefer that. And of course we did kits. You guys like the kits, so we did kits. And they include all the fabrics that I used in my version. So we've got the ombre sky that's here. So that's the big piece here. It's got the binding in there. The 3 shades for the iceberg. Of course, the black and white and his little bit of orange for his features. The mountain shades, so the different shades of blue for the mountains, the different shades of gray for his body, and then the light black for the rest of the details of the penguin. So we'll put links to this. We've got the pattern, we've got the kits, of course the ruler. Like I said, if you've already got the large ruler, you don't need the mini one, but the mini one is the way that this pattern is all illustrated. So we'll link to everything, and hopefully you liked this and enjoy. Thanks for watching.